Let's start. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. Queen takes knight. Checks in this position are: bishop to c4, check. Queen to h5, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen takes knight. Bishop takes knight. Queen takes bishop. Let's continue. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Queen takes rook, check. Checks in puzzle position are: rook to e1, check. Queen takes rook, check. Queen to d1, check. Queen to a1, check. Solution to the puzzle is: rook to e1, check. King to h2. Queen to h4, checkmate. Next, threats in this position are: pawn takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes bishop. Here are the checks. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to h8, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Queen to h8, check. King to e7. Queen takes rook. One more. Here are threats in puzzle position. Queen takes rook. Queen takes pawn. Knight takes queen. Knight takes bishop. There are no checks in this position. Solution to the puzzle is: knight takes queen. Rook takes queen, check. Rook takes rook. Rook takes rook, check. King takes rook. Another one. Here are threats in puzzle position. Bishop takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes knight. There are no checks in this position. The puzzle is solved using: queen takes bishop. Let's see the next puzzle. Threats in puzzle position are: queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Rook takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Solution to the puzzle is: queen takes pawn. h6. Rook to g1. Let's continue. The threats are: knight takes rook. Knight takes rook. Knight takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. Queen takes pawn, check. Bishop takes pawn. Checks in this position are: queen takes pawn, check. Queen to b3, check. Bishop to c4, check. Answer to this puzzle is: queen to b3, check. King to g7. Knight takes rook, check. Let's see the next puzzle. The threats are: knight takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. Checks in puzzle position are: knight to f6, check. The puzzle is solved using: queen takes bishop. f5. Knight to f6, check. Rook takes knight. Queen takes rook. Next puzzle. Here are threats in puzzle position. Pawn takes queen. Pawn takes knight. There are no checks in this position. The answer is: pawn takes queen. Knight takes queen. King takes knight. Another one. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are: queen takes queen. Pawn takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. The answer is: queen takes queen. Bishop takes knight. Queen to a7, check. King to f1. Queen takes pawn. Next puzzle. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are: bishop takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. Solution to the puzzle is: bishop to b2. Queen takes pawn. Bishop to f7. Queen to e7. Queen takes bishop. One more. Let us look at threats in puzzle position. Rook takes knight. Queen takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. The best move in puzzle position is: rook takes knight. Rook takes rook. King takes rook. Another one. Here are the threats. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Knight to g3, check. Knight to d2, check. Answer to this puzzle is: knight to g3, check. King to g1. Queen takes rook, check. Another one. Puzzle position vulnerabilities are: rook takes bishop. Checks in puzzle position are: rook to b4, check. Queen to b5, check. Queen to a6, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Rook to b4, check. King to a8. Bishop takes bishop. One more, threats in puzzle position are. Knight takes pawn. Knight takes knight, check. Bishop takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. The checks are. Knight takes knight, check. Knight to f6, check. Answer to this puzzle is. Knight to f6, check. Bishop takes knight. Pawn takes bishop. One more, here are the threats. Pawn takes knight. Pawn takes pawn. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes knight, check. Queen takes bishop. Bishop takes pawn. Here are checks in puzzle position. Queen takes knight, check. Solution to the puzzle is. Pawn takes knight. Bishop takes knight, check. Pawn takes bishop. Next puzzle, threats in this position are. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Here are the checks. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen to b1, check. Queen to a1, check. The answer is. Queen to a1, check. King to h2. Queen to e5, check. One more, let us look at threats in puzzle position. Queen takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. The puzzle is solved using d7. Bishop takes pawn. Queen takes bishop. Let's continue. Here are the threats. Rook takes pawn. The checks are. Bishop to c7, check. Bishop to c5, check. c5, check. Solution to the puzzle is. c5, check. Another one, threats in this position are. Rook takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. Checks in this position are. Knight to g5, check. The best move in puzzle position is. Queen to a4. Rook to e7. Queen takes bishop. Rook takes rook. Pawn takes rook. Let's continue. The threats are. Queen takes pawn. Queen takes knight. Rook takes knight. Here are the checks. Queen to d8, check. Queen to e5, check. The puzzle is solved using. Queen to e5, check. Queen to e6. Queen takes rook, check. King to d7. Queen takes rook. Knight to f3, check. King to g2. Next, here are threats in puzzle position. Rook takes rook. Queen takes bishop. Queen takes knight. Queen takes pawn. The checks are. Queen to e1, check. Queen to b1, check. Answer to this puzzle is. Queen takes bishop. Rook takes rook. Rook takes rook. One more, threats in puzzle position are. Bishop takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. Bishop takes knight. Knight takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. There are no checks in this position. The puzzle is solved using. Bishop takes knight. Another puzzle. Here are threats in puzzle position. Bishop takes pawn. Queen takes pawn, check. Queen takes pawn. Rook takes rook. Rook takes pawn. The checks are. Queen takes pawn, check. The answer is. Rook to f5. Queen to h8, check. Rook to d8. Queen to h6. Rook takes bishop. Queen takes rook. Bishop to b8. Another puzzle. The threats are. Queen takes pawn, check. The checks are. Queen to f7, check. Queen to e8, check. Queen takes pawn, check. Here is the solution to the puzzle. Knight to c3. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.